Hey guys, so here's the deal. We're business people, right? So we're gonna start as close on time as possible. I know we're a couple minutes slow, but first time jumping in is always interesting for people. So let's just jump right in here and start off. I want to make sure we get a good overview of what we're talking about from end to end. I've got over on this side what we're going to really talk about and break out today, and then I just want you to kind of have an overall overarching idea of what the end goal result is for this, right? So this program is literally built from end to end to end up with this as your recipe. Have you guys seen this before? This is realtor math. So when you're doing realtor math, you need to use stick figures because it makes more sense that way, right? So basically what this says is, here's your people, right? Divide that by 10. That should equal one closing. Okay? So when we start looking at what are we doing here, the ideal scenario in this job, number one, is to stop chasing people. I don't want you out chasing people around. I want you attracting people to you. Does that sound familiar? I've been talking about attracting, not chasing, for like 10 years. So when people say, we want to attract realtors, we want to attract people to us, this is the mindset shift that we want to look at. So, for example, I had, I don't know, what was there, like 20-something people there yesterday, Brunel? Somewhere north of 20-ish or so, 22 people. Those are 22 people that said, hey, I want what you got, I'm coming to get it, right? And then you deliver. So instead of me going and individually chasing each one of those, I just go, hey, I got this. You want some? Come and get it, right? If you guys want to see how this really works also in a larger application, a more formalized, more massive application, I did this little webinar last week that talks about how to do this consistently. A bunch of people showed up, and then some people are saying, I want what you got. I'm willing to pay you for it. Those are you guys. Okay? Yeah. So, do you see when you throw up a flag and say, hey, I got something, who wants it? It's a completely different game. So when you're playing that game that way, instead of going one by one by one by one by one by one person, say, do you want some cotton candy? 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 If you say, hey, I got some cotton candy, who wants it? Everybody that steps up probably wants some, right? And then occasionally you get that one person who's like, I don't know what I'm up here for, but everybody else is coming, so I just want to join them. Right? Like, I don't even know what I'm in this line for. You can get random human beings and just start lining them up, and other people will stand in line, and they're like, I don't know what I'm in this line for, but man, there's a bunch of people here, so I'll just stand here, right? So it's a matter of shifting your mindset from chasing business to attracting business, and you can literally take that and you can run that through every avenue of your life, right? You can apply this to business. You can apply this to your real estate part of your business. You can apply this to your relationships, right? You can apply this to dating if you're single, right? Big difference between going out and chasing people around and going out and saying, hey, here's what I got. Who wants this, right? The people that come up are most likely going to want to do business with you or do whatever with you, right? So it's way more fun when you start looking at this equation, because then you can literally say, this basically, all this says is 10% of the people you know, 10% of your people should be connected to a transaction. Okay, so if I've got 100 people in my sphere of influence, I should be able to drive 10 transactions out of that sphere of influence if I do the rest of the stuff in this program. If I have 200 people, I should be able to do 20 transactions. See, here's the really cool part. So it doesn't matter where you're at, what your numbers look like, where your business is, you can literally say, okay, if I want to do this and implement this consistently, I can literally determine exactly how many sales I'm going to do, or plus or minus a couple sales I'm going to do in the next year. Because I know when we do this consistently over time in almost every market, whether the market's going up or the market's going down, people hit around 10%. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yep.
Okay, so when we start looking at math, so Jay, how many closings do you want to have in the next year?
25.
25, okay? So based on that math, how many people do you need to know and have them know, like, and trust you as their guy?
250.
250, okay? Good. So do you currently have 250 people in your sphere of influence?
No.
Cool. So good news is you got a little bit of work to do. The nice part is we know what you need to work on now. It's literally just saying, how do I get to that 250, and then I can work them through the steps, and when I do that consistently over the next 12 months, I should be hitting right about 10%. Okay, now, Jay, here's the fun part, right? We're going to talk about this. When we get into mindset and goals. Here's the fun part for you. Next year or the year after that, are you going to want to still do 25?
Probably want to do more than that.
You bet you probably will, right? Because what happens is we're human, right? Every time we achieve something, we're like, well, shoot, if I got that, maybe I can get this. If I got that, I can get this, right? Every time I get a faster car, I try to get the next one faster. Right? And then you can just like shortcut it all the way to the end. If you like going fast in a straight line, just get that cool new Tesla, like what P95 or P95 or whatever the heck it is. There's almost nothing in the world that accelerates like that. Of course, it sounds like a pissed off hairdryer, but who cares, right? You can run a soundtrack of Top Gun in the radio if it makes you feel better, right? But so every time we get to something, we want to move the bar a little bit, right, Jay? It's just human, which is awesome. So the cool part is the whole goal as we're talking about this is to get your system set up so you're able to predict and repeat exactly this. You're able to hit at that 10% number. We're able to use that math right there to be able to evaluate whether I'm doing a good job of delivering value and connecting and building a relationship, right? And if we do have that 10% number, fantastic. Good news is that if I want to do more business, I just got to get a couple more people, right? Here's the other fun part about this program. Jody will like this because she likes to have fun, right? That curly hair isn't just for show. She's getting crazy with it all the time, right? So when Jody says, hey, I want to grow my business, great. I want to grow it by 10 sales in the next year. I need to add 100 people to my sphere of influence. You know what I'm going to tell Jody to do? I'm going to tell Jody she needs to join another bike group. She needs to get out and do more things that she enjoys, because the chances are she's going to meet more people that are wired like her doing the things that she loves. And all the people that ride bicycles like she does are a little bit messed up, just like she is. I know, because I'm a bike guy. All of my bike buddies are messed up a little bit, and they're messed up just like me, right? So when we say, hey, we're going to go for a bike ride, and everybody's like, well, how many miles are we doing? They're like, anybody suggests anything under 40, they're like, what's wrong with you? Are you dying? I mean, you can do that, like 40 miles is like a deathbed ride. Like, yo, I'm planning on dying tomorrow, I will get 40, right? So I got 40 miles in the day before I had my hip replaced. So, you know, so these people are not right, but they're not right just like you, right? So my mother-in-law hangs out with a whole crew, like a gigantic crew of quilters. Not my kind of people. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with quilters, right? If you want cookies, they are the crew to hang out with, man. Because like every quilting event has cookies. I don't know. It must be like some kind of quilting code. Have quilts, must bring cookies, right? So they've got that nailed down. So they kind of have their own little things. You got a bunch of cookie lovers that like sewing. Okay, so if you're a cookie lover that likes sewing or a sewer that likes cookies, quilting's probably the right jam for you. And the cool part is they become your people and they're more likely to do business with you because you get each other. Okay, so the goal is right out of the gate, the end result of this program, at the end, we want to be looking at how do we get to 10% of our sphere of influence sending us at least one transaction every single year. If you're at 5%, you got some work to do. If you're at 12 and 13%, you and I are going to be having a conversation. I'm going to put you side by side with me, and I'm going to interview you on exactly what you're doing, because you're doing something great, right? So the cool part is we have step by step as we go, and we start off with mindset. Okay? Any questions about what's included in this program? You're in the right program, right? Everybody in the right program? You're like, I don't know. Good. Vernell, is this the right program for you? Yeah. So let's start off with this, okay? So first step first. The most important part of every session that we're going to do is the mindset part, right? So it's super, super important that you understand that the mindset of what we do and how it's like what we think starts what we do. So what we got to start sitting down and saying, okay, if I can get my brain right, get my brain focused on the right stuff, ignore all the other, ignore what you have, be focused on what you want, where you want to go, what you want your life to look like, what you want to be seeing, doing, having, experiencing. If we can get you focused on that stuff, you're much more likely to see the path to get them, right? So if I say to you, hey, you're in Tampa, Florida, you need to get to Detroit, Michigan, I'm going to start like, okay, perfect, great. So how are you going to get there? I'm going to drive east until I hit I-75. I'm going to make a left-hand turn, and I'm going to keep on 75 till I hit Detroit, literally, right? Like one road, make one turn, one road, you're there. You didn't have to stop to get gas. You could literally drive straight through and bump right into Detroit. So I drive back and forth between Detroit and Tampa. Easiest directions ever. If I'm going to Tampa, I just follow 75 south the whole way. If I'm going to Detroit, I follow 75 north the whole way. How's that for easy directions, right? Not everything is like that. Once we start establishing what am I going for, where am I going, it makes it way easier for us to say, okay, well, how do I get there? Sometimes it's as easy as making one turn and boom, you're on the right track. And as long as you stay on that track, you're going. So for some of you guys, you have business already going in the right direction. And it's just a matter of saying, make that one little switch, pop in that one little lane, and boom, it takes it to a whole nother level, right? So we're going to be working on those things. So first things first, we got to establish goals. Where do we want to go, right? If we're not clear on where we want to go and clear on what we want to have, what do we get? Right, Ron, right? You get whatever, right? You get whatever you get. So if you really want to have something specific, if you want to have a fantastic relationship, if you want to have a really cool car, if you want to have 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks a year of vacation, if you want to have X amount of income, it's really important that you clearly define that. So Jay said to me earlier, he wants to have 25 closings in the next year. Okay, so that's going to be one good goal. Now, so we've got to start getting more specific on what that means, because Jay, I could give you 25 closings in the next year. All of them are in downtown Detroit. Top price is, going to be 30 grand. Are you good?
No.
So here's a true story, funny story, right? I've got a real estate agent out of San Diego that's in the EXP system, and she had seen something I'd done. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, Russ, you actually do sell houses occasionally?" I'm like, "Yeah, I actually know how to still do that." So she actually asked me to list a property in Detroit, vacant land piece of property. So I listed the vacant land piece of property. It's like 30 grand, right? So the guy, the buyer's agent, calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, this thing's only offering $1,000. I won't work for less than 3%. And my response back to him was, "Okay, cool, no worries, perfect, that's fine. I totally understand that." So he's like, "Good, I'm really glad you did. So I'm gonna send an offer over, but it's contingent upon me getting paid 3%. Is that, can you make that happen?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I have no problems making that happen." Does anybody know what 3% of $30,000 is?
900.
$900. So what he was doing is he was arguing for a $100 pay cut. Right? And I'm like, "Done, dude. I got you covered, man. I will totally pay you 3% all day." And then I talked to the seller, and the seller's like, yeah, I got it. Okay, totally. That's funny. Haha. I was like, "Do you mind if I let him back off the hook and just say, hey, we'll pay you $1,000?" And she's like, "Totally fine with that." Just, explain it to him. So I called the guy up. I'm like, "Dude, the seller agreed. He'd be happy to pay you that, but did you do the math?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I offered $1,000. You wanted 3%. He's like, "Yeah, I don't accept anything less than 3%. I'm like, "You realize you just requested $900, right?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Do the math, man." Right? So a lot of times we're like, "This is what I want. This is what I want in my life." And you're like, "Are you sure you want that?" So sometimes you and I are going to have conversations, and you're going to say something. I'm going to be like, "Are you sure you want that? Have you done the math on that?" Okay? So Jay, as we're going through this process, 25 closings, we got to get more specific. So what I want all of you guys to think right now is, what are 3 personal goals and 3 business goals that you want to achieve in the next year? Now, I don't want you to think, "Oh, there's only 3. I want you to say, "Okay, if I'm going to focus on 3 important ones, what are like 3 really good ones that you want to achieve for your next year? What do you guys want to do?" So start thinking through that. If you have the ability to write this down, I would say write it down. It's a great time to start writing this stuff down. I'm going to be asking you about this every session for the next couple of weeks. So I want you to be reminding yourself. The more often you remind yourself of this, the more often you think about this, the more likely you are to get it. Okay? So 3 things that are business goals, 3 things that are business goals, 3 things that are personal goals. Okay? So do you know what they are? So what I want you to start thinking is, what do you want? What do you want to have? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to see? What do you want to do? What do you want to experience? Who would you like to experience it with? How much money do you want to make? How many closings do you want? What type of sales do you want to do? How many hours a week do you want to work? All of those things are things we're going to factor in. So as we get into making examples of some of these, I've got a way to actually filter these through so that you actually have the ability to really get these goals locked up. And then we'll add affirmations to it so you're saying the right thing in your head all the time. Okay?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a time you want us to put those goals to be achieved, or just, 12 months or less?
Well, so it depends on the goal, right? If your goal is to sell one house per month, it's like I need to get one house closed in the next month, right? If your goal is to do 12 in a year, it's 12 in a year. So we can start adding timelines. So everything has a timeline, right? So let me give you a perfect example. Something personal people say to me all the time is, Russ, I want to lose weight. I'm like, okay, good. You get hit by a car and you lose your leg. We good?
No.
No, I just lost 35 pounds. I lost a leg, right? Well, that's not what you're talking about, right? So I want to lose what? I want to lose weight. Well, how much weight do you want to lose, and by when do you want to lose it? So if you say to me, Russ, my personal goal is I want to drop 20 pounds in the next 3 months, perfect. That sounds like a pretty good goal to me, right? There's a couple more things I would like to add to that so that I get more specific and make it more likely to happen. But that's a good start, right? So if you guys have seen the first video, you had access to all the videos of this stuff. In week 1, session 1, I go into this in more detail. So Vernell, so one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure, actually I'm going to do this vertical. We want to make sure our goals are what we call SMART goals. Look, some people have argued this on and off over the years about how to go about establishing goals and so forth and so on. I'm going to tell you, realistically, there is no best way to do it, but this really helps me to walk through, does it make sense? Okay, so Vernell, give me one of your goals.
It is to lose a couple of pounds. I've been on pace to lose about 1.5 to 2 pounds a week. I'm looking at 10 pounds in the next 30 days.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at that as a goal, and let's run it into the filter here. And as we run it into the filter, it'll start to make sure number one, we've got all the parts and pieces. We need to make it make sense, right? So if you said to me, I hear this quite a bit, and some of you guys might have this, my goal is to lose 10 pounds. Okay, great. First question is that specific? Okay, in a SMART goal system, is that specific?
Yes.
I want to lose 10 pounds. Is that specific?
I think so, yeah.
Well, partially, right? Okay. So let's add the rest of it too. Is it measurable? Okay, that's the second part. Measurable.
Yeah.
Is it measurable? Can I measure 10 pounds? Yes. Good. Okay. Is it measurable timeline though?
I think it's a little bit, maybe just a wee bit extreme, but I've been on pace at 1.5 pounds per week.
Okay.
So
let's go into the next criteria, which might help. Is it attainable?
Yeah, it is attainable.
Is it attainable? So the question when you're asking, is it attainable? So Jay says to me, Russell, I want to have 25 closings in the next year. Okay, perfect. Is that attainable? Absolutely. Attainable, the question you want to ask when you say, is it attainable, is something like this. Is it possible? Has anybody else ever done this before? Is it possible? If it's possible, then it's possible for you too, potentially. And that's why we have the second part, which is it reasonable? So when you say, is it attainable? Yes. Is it reasonable? Maybe, maybe not. So let me give you a perfect example of that. This is a really great, simple, completely exaggerated example. It makes sense, right? Is it possible to go to the moon? Yes, it is. Is it possible for you to go to the moon? No. Not so much, right? So is going to the moon attainable? Yes. Is that reasonable? Not reasonable, right? So when we start breaking this down into specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and then we add the last part, we add timeline, it really gets us really specific on what we're doing. Because what I'll see people say is, well, I want to make more money. Okay, great. How much and by when? Right? So some people say, well, I want to make 100 grand a year. I'm like, okay, but you got to work 120 hours a week to do it. Are we good? No. So when you start looking at income goals, say, am I willing to do whatever it takes? Yeah, but you don't have to be willing to do crazy stuff like working 200 hours a week to be able to make your goal happen. So when Jay says to me, I want to do 25 sales closed in the next year, let's break this out, Jay. So is that specific?
Yes.
Okay. Is that measurable?
Yes.
Is that attainable?
Yes.
Is it reasonable?
Yes.
The timeline.
Yes.
Okay. So there's one more part that I would say is missing on this. So let me say, I'll go back to where we were before. If it's $25,000, $30,000 properties, let me negotiate your deal for you. $1,000 a pop, not 900. Are you good? You made 30 grand.
Mm-mm.
No, right? So when you start going, okay, well, what am I really looking for, right? So what is your average sales price in your market, Jay?
300,000.
Okay, good. Are you selling currently average in your market, below average or above average?
I'd say above average.
Above average, okay, good. So if you sold only $300,000 houses, that would be a little bit of a pay cut if you did the same thing this year over last year, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when I'm going to go into your goal, I'm going to say, okay, let's just get a little more specific on it because I want to make sure I get what I want. Because at the end of the year, you say, well, I want to make 200 grand. Okay, you made 200 grand, but it cost you $140,000. You netted 60. Whoops, there's a problem, right? So I want to net $200,000 a year is a different number than just make 200,000. So as we get into these numbers and get into that goal, Jay, let me make some suggestions for you here to make it a little bit more specific to what you're looking for. See if this resonates more with you. I will close over 25 sales in the next 12 months at an average sales price of north of $350,000 average sales price. And average a minimum of 2.5% commission on each one. So if you do a bunch of $400,000 sales at 2% commission, you could actually do $300,000 sales at a 3% commission with more money.
Right.
So it's on my average commission, which you should assume you're probably gonna get your average in your market. Does the math work, right? So I have people say, well, I want to do this, this, and this, and I'm like, okay, what's your average commission in your market? The average commission in your market is 2%. So we can't build the number off of 3. We got to build it off of 2. So you just got to run that number through and try to figure out exactly what that number looks like and get more specific on it. So Jay, would you make an adjustment to say, I want to close 25 or more homes at over $350,000 sales price average at an average commission in the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I've already taken some changes in my head.
Yeah, right. So those little adjustments make a big difference because you're like, I got the 25, but I missed boom, 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 and boom, right? So that doesn't really help. Paula, you had a question?
Sorry, it's Paula.
Paula, okay, Paula, hey, good, thank you. I'm gonna say Paula, okay, got it. Hi, Paula.
You're just cutting in and out a little bit. Hi.
That's what you're saying, got it. Okay. When we have other people with other background noise in the background, it'll cut me out sometimes, so that's why somebody told Ron to mute his mic. So appreciate that, thank you. Did you have anything else, or that was it?
That was it for right now.
Okay, good. So, hey, while I got you on the hook, hey, when I got a fish on the hook, I'm not letting go. I'm going to reel a little bit, right? Set it up. All right, so what are one of your goals, Paula?
Personal or professional?
You tell me. Which one's important to you?
Both. So I also had 24 transactions for the next year.
Okay.
And I'm tweaking it now with the dollar value so I can hit a target of like 1 million GCI.
Okay, million gross commission. Good. So she's selling slightly more expensive houses. You guys might have noted. She said 20.
One of my goals is also to get into luxury.
She said 24 closings, million GCI. All math went in my head. I'm like, wow, she's selling expensive stuff over there. Okay, good stuff, right? Okay, so what's one of your other goals? So let's pick on one of your other ones. What's one of your personal ones?
I want to save for a house.
Save for a house. Okay, so great. Let's run it into the filter here. Okay, is that specific?
Yes. Yes.
Are you sure?
Okay, I want to save for a 3-bedroom.
Okay.
So I have to save About $30,000
See, here we're getting somewhere, right?
or 60 if I want to put 20% down.
Okay. So which one is it? 30 or 60?
I can probably do 30.
Okay. That's
All right,
good.
so $30,000 I need to save for a house.
Okay. And you
I'd
save
like
that
to-
$30,000 over the next 20 years.
Over the next year. This is for the next year, 12 months.
Well, it doesn't have to be next year. Some of these goals can be 2 and 3 and 5, 6 years, you know? It would be like, I want to retire before I'm 50, which simply means I don't want to have to trade time for money by the time I'm 50. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop working, but that's a 2, 3, 4 year goal, right? For some people. For some of you guys, less. Some of you guys missed it. Right?
I'm only able to write 3 though, but that's one of my goals as well.
Okay, got it. So let's get more specific on yours. So save $30,000 in the next year towards the purchase of your house, next house. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. So is that specific?
Yes,
Is it measurable?
it is.
If I have 0 today and I have $1 tomorrow, I'll move in the right direction. Maybe not fast enough, so we might want to chunk this down to a little bit smaller goal. So we'll talk about that in a second. Is that attainable? Is it possible to save 30 grand in a year?
It is possible.
Possible. Is it reasonable?
Maybe it's a little unreasonable, but I'm trying to set my goals high.
So who determines whether it's reasonable or not?
Me.
Yeah, right. If you think it's reasonable, it's most likely reasonable. If you think it's not, it's most likely not, right? So the next thing is this bound to a timeline? So it's next year, 12 months. So yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to save a minimum of $30,000 a year towards the purchase of a new home. So help me God, I don't care what it takes to get there, I'm going to do that, right? So let's break that down into a slightly smaller chunk. So a lot of times somebody like Jay will be saying, I want to do 25 closings in the next year. Well, to him, 25 closings in the next year it feels like a little bit of a stretch, right? So it's like, okay, Jay, I want you to feel better about your goal. Paula, I want you to feel better about your goal. So here's what we're going to do. If I take that 25 sales divided by 12, that's only 2 homes a month, which is only 1 every 2 weeks. That's 1 closing every 2 weeks, 2 sales in a month. Does 2 sales in a month sound much more reasonable and easy to do, Jay, than 25 in a year?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so sometimes literally saying like 25, like, oh, I got to do 25. Holy crap, right? Well, 25 seems like a big number, but when you break it down, it's like, that's only 2 a month, right? And if you look at the average amount of hours it goes into doing 1 sale, you're looking at, maybe 40, 45 hours of actual work for the whole month. So is that doable? Absolutely. Is that manageable? Certainly do that, right? I can probably do 3, 4, 5 in a month if I have my systems in place. I could probably do 7 or 8 in a month if I have the right stuff in place. So is 2 a month doable? Absolutely. Does it feel more manageable? Absolutely. So I'm not aiming for 25. I'm aiming for 1 at a time, and I need to hit 2 in a month. Does that make more sense? Okay, so Paula, $30,000 divided by 12 is what?
6,000 a month.
Oh.
No.
Not even.
Hey Ross, I'm looking over her shoulders to make sure she does the math right.
I'm trying sighting.
2,400.
I feel like Bigfoot just popped out of the woodwork there. Holy crap, that's awesome. Like cameo appearance of Tom Trong. This almost makes us famous, right, Paula? Okay, so
It
Paula,
does.
$30,000 divided by 12 is how much?
2,400.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Does $2,400 a month sound like a big deal?
Not if I hit my goals.
Right, if you have 24 closings, right? So this is why you've got more than just one goal you're aiming at. If I have 24 closings, what's your average sales price on your closings? About $1 million bucks?
Reasonably, it's about 300,000, but
300,000, right? So 300,000 average sales price. Let's say you're getting 6%, so you get $9,000 average sale. Okay, so this is why we really draw our goals out. So Paula, you said you want to do $1 million GCI, right?
Yep.
Okay, you're saying average sales price is 300 grand. You want to do 24 sales. At 9 grand a pop, that's less than 240,000.
I'm going to have to bump my goals up.
Well, so do you guys see why we do this and why it's important to have somebody kind of walk us through? Because like for me, I'll say, oh, I want to do 1 million GCI. I'm going to do it selling 25 homes. Okay, that's great, but they got to be $1 million homes to do that. That's why in my head I was going, oh, she's selling $1 million houses. Because if you had $1 million houses, they'd be $30,000 commissions or $25,000 commissions. You got $25,000 commissions times 25 of them. You're doing good, right? That's a bunch. Okay, so when we start doing the math on this stuff, if we're telling ourselves a story and the story doesn't actually match, what'll happen is you get halfway into the year, the goal, part of your goal, one of your goals is 1 million GCI. You're aiming for 24 closings at 300,000 average sales price. You're missing it by a mile, and then you're standing there going, I don't feel successful, Russ. Well, it's really hard to be successful if your whole plan is built on the wrong numbers and the wrong math. So let's realign the math. So if I want to be 1 million GCI at a $300,000 average sales price, how many homes do I have to do? So take $1 million and divide by 9,000. Okay. Do you have a calculator going?
I do.
I mean, you got the calculator behind you. Okay, $1 million divided by 9,000.
111.
Yeah, 111 transactions.
Okay. So now let me ask you, Paula, does 111 transactions sound doable?
No, that is none of the attainable, reasonable, or in timeline any way possible.
Okay. So here's the thing. For you, 111 sales seems unattainable and certainly not reasonable. So here's the difference between somebody that goes through life feeling inspired and feeling driven and somebody who goes through life feeling like they're being dragged, kicking and screaming, right? So there's a question you ask when that comes up. So it's like, if that's what you really want and you're saying that's not attainable or reasonable, my next question as a coach would be, okay, well, what would have to change to make that reasonable and attainable?
Yep.
What would I have to do differently? What would I have to learn? What would I have to experience to make that reasonable and attainable, right? So now
you'd have to start selling luxury.
Say that again?
You'd have to start selling luxury.
Yeah, or just selling more houses, right? You have to sell a bunch more $300,000 houses or start selling way higher priced houses, right? So if you're going, okay, well, good news is you're not saying it's not doable. The question isn't, can I do it or can't I do it? The question I ask when somebody says, hey, this is what I want to say, okay, the question I ask is, how do I do that? It changes the way you see everything in life. If you're like, I want this, right now it's not attainable or reasonable, well, how would I go about doing that? That's why people drive through. It's like, you hand Tom a problem, he doesn't go, can I do it or can't I do it? He's like, how do I do it? How do I do it? Like, your goal is I want to recruit 40 people, I want to attract 40 people into my system. Great. He doesn't go, is it possible? He's like, how do I figure it out, right? And he starts doing some steps. If it's working, he keeps doing the steps. If it's not working, he makes adjustments, say, okay, that's not working, so what do I need to adjust to make that work, right? So Paula, the question I would have is, do you want to go to your goal? Do you want to back off that million and say, I want to hit $250,000 in gross commission income in the next year? Then when I get that, then I say, how do I get to 500? Or do you want to say, I want to stick with $1 million and let's figure out how to do that?
I'll probably drop it down to 250.
Okay. Listen, what I want you to do is I want you to build something that makes sense to you guys and is plausible to you, right? So if you say to me, Russ, you got to go out and sell 100 houses in the next year, I'm like, okay, no problem. Done it before, so it's not a big deal, right? But for somebody who hasn't done it, it is a big deal. I haven't made $1 million in a year yet, so that's the next plan, right? I'm working on passive income streams right now to be able to drive things forward on my plan, but I'm doing things that make sense and are reasonable to me, and I have a plan to move forward on those things, right? So as we run into these, you got to look at every single thing you do and say, does this make sense? And then let's run the math backwards. And if you get stuck on it, reach out to me, okay? Because I can help you guys with this stuff. We're going to talk more about this next week so that you guys have the ability to really get specific on this stuff, okay? So does anybody have something they're stuck on right now goal-wise? If you have a goal, is it specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time-bound? Does anybody else have something they're stuck on right now? You speak up now, because I'm going to ask you guys what these are next week, because I want you to be focused on this regularly, right?
Well, I'll just say I changed mine just in this conversation from, I personally don't want to sell 2,500. I'm looking at more of the income that I can generate from those sales because I want to do more referrals and get referral fees and help bring agents onto my team and use that as a way to attract agents versus actually personally selling those homes. So I've already changed that goal in my head.
Okay, good. So let's go back to, so now what is the goal?
I'd like to make $10,000 a month in referral fees.
10K a month in referral fee. Okay, good.
Or commission.
Okay, 10K a month in referral fees or commission. Perfect. Okay, so a lot of times people get stuck. Like this is a perfect example. My wife and I just picked up a foster dog Sunday night that got rescued from a breeder in China. The other 5 dogs were rescued from a butcher shop in China. You don't want to know more details than that. That's enough for most people to ruin their day. And we picked up this little girl. My wife's like, I want a little greyhound girl that's sweet and cute and cuddly and blah, blah, blah. And then she's getting more and more and more and more specific. I'm like, you want cute, small, cuddly. Well, we end up with this Oompa Loompa looking greyhound. It's like this tall, right? I mean, it's like a miniature, like, we don't even know if it's a greyhound. It's so short, right? It's like its legs got sawed off 6 inches short, you know, like one of those little toy cat things, you know? And my wife's like, but she's so short. I'm like, you've been saying to the universe, small, cute, sweet, cuddly. Look at this. You couldn't have asked for smaller, cute. This dog's 40 pounds. My normal girl's 65, right? She's like 5 inches shorter than my current dog. So I'm like, you got to be careful what you wish for, Jay, because you might get it. So she's got exactly that, right? So as you start shifting this, you say, is 10K a month in referral specific? Sure. Is it measurable, attainable, reasonable time? Absolutely. Interesting goal, right? So I'm not as concerned how it comes to me. I don't care how the Ferrari ends up in my driveway. Tom's going to say, I love Russ so much, I'm sending him a Ferrari because I'm so well, I'm like, just drop a Ferrari in his driveway. I don't care how it gets there. I don't need to have to buy it myself. If somebody drops it off, I'll take it. It's good. Right?
One day in our lifetime, I will drop one off to you, Russ.
It's entirely possible. That would be funny.
Hey, wow, that would be funny. If you're going to touch on accountability, because you know, Paula is new to my team. She's a full-time buyer's agent on my team.
Yep.
And she's sitting through this training, of course, to build her business. But you know, I've got to figure out how to hold her accountable, and she needs to hold me accountable to deliver on the promises we make to each other.
Okay, good. So Tom, that is a great question. So when we start getting into weeks number 2, 3, 4, you're going to see what I call 30 points to success. So Tom, here's one thing that's really awesome. In order to help Paula hold herself to what she's doing, when we get to the 30 points to success part in week 3, we'll talk about how do we quantify what we're doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. So at the end of the week, you can look at Paula and say, Paula, how many points did you get this week? And she's going to say to you, I got 150, 200, 250, because she's going to have specific activities to work on that are money-making activities. So like Jay will have the same thing. He'll say, okay, if I want 10K a month in referral, how many referrals do I have to send out? And how many points do I need doing that so that I know over the next 12 months it'll yield me that kind of business? So accountability and tracking absolutely goes in hand with this. We developed that tracking and accountability in week number 3 and 4. And the reason we do that is because like week number 1 and 2 is literally about getting your brain going the right direction and thinking about the right stuff and focused on the right stuff, so that when you're focused on the right stuff, you can actually start doing the right stuff. So like Jay right now just bent his whole world sideways. He's like, wait a minute, that's not what I really, oh crap, right? Left turn, Clyde. Right, Jay, that's worth $500 alone right there because you're not going to bang away on the next year at the wrong goal. You just paid for your whole program by itself by not wasting your time doing stuff you didn't want to do. If you can build that instead, it's a completely different game, right? Different tasks involved with that. Very doable, but a different game and a different set of tasks. So it's really important you get really clear on what you really want your business to look like. So for me, like my wife, small, cute, sweet, cuddly greyhound, she got it. Just way smaller than she was expecting, right? So for me, I don't care how my money comes to me. My goal right now is $30,000 a month passive income. That's my goal. I'm not stopping till I get there. I literally draw it on my wrist every day. I draw it on my wrist with black ink pen to remind me. It's like just literally just hand drawn on my wrist. It's 3 X's, which is Roman numerals for 30,000. 3 X's. So if you see 3 X's on my wrist, That's me reminding myself, I'm aiming for $30,000 a month passive income. I'm not stop until I get there. And the goal is to get that going in the next year. So everything I'm doing is moving towards making sure that's possible. So when I sit down and say, what am I doing today? Does this help me reach my goal? So Paul is going to say, hey, is this going to help me go towards that 24, 25 closings at $300,000 average in the next year? If that's helping me move towards that, I keep doing it. If I'm looking and going, why am I doing this? I mean, realtors like notoriously like, well, I'm doing this, 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 and this. And I'm like, why? Why are we doing it? So the ultimate goal of this whole program in the next 6 or 7 sessions for you guys is to be able to say, at the end, I'm only working on things that help me drive my business in the right direction. Because if I'm working on stuff that doesn't drive my business in the right direction, then my business isn't going in the right direction. So the mindset is, where do I want to go? What does that plan look like? And how do I get there? So if you guys are getting stuck on these over the next couple of days, I want you to add more things to this list. I want you to stay focused on 3 main components, business and personal. And then next week, I'm going to ask you again, what are your goals? And then we're going to drive it through the system. Is it specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, time bound? Because I want to make sure that you're heading the right direction. So here's a perfect analogy, right? I was talking to this guy. He's like, Russ, I'm running like crazy. Man, I'm running like crazy. I'm running 5-minute miles everywhere I go. And I'm like, yeah, but you're running the wrong way. It doesn't matter how fast you're going if you're running the wrong way. So if you're running fast and running the right direction and running directly at your goals, you're more likely to get there. If I'm running 5-minute miles north, the finish line is south, I'm just running faster away from my stuff. So I want you running straight at your stuff and running at a pace that works for you. Okay? Does that make sense to you guys? Good. Okay, so mindset is good. With the goals, we're going to start attaching affirmations. So Jay, I've already kind of given you that suggestion on the previous affirmations. Let's make an adjustment. You can borrow one of my affirmations from like 15 years ago. I make over $10,000 every month passively you could use, or by referral, or I make over $10,000 every month in general. I don't care how it comes to me, like me. I don't care how the Ferrari ends up in the driveway. As long as it arrives there at some point, it'll be cool, right? So how do you get that $10,000 a month? You can get more specific on that, or you just leave it open saying, I'm generating over $10,000 every month by referral. So as you start running that mantra in, as opportunities start to show, you start to see opportunities on how to do that. That's the forefront of my mind. It's like playing slug bug. Did you guys ever play slug bug when you're growing up, or punch buggy? You're driving along in the back of the car. I've got 3 brothers. We're driving along the back of the car, and every time anybody sees a Volkswagen Bug, you punch your brother. Yell punch buggy, and you slug somebody, right? That's why I call it slug bug or punch buggy, right? And there were a dozen brawls on every road trip over just playing that stupid game, which is why I got banned in our car, because there were bruises everywhere, and then my dad would get involved, and he'd whoop everybody. But the point being is that when you start to focus on something, and Paula, when you start to say, hey, I'm going to attract 2 sales or more every single month at over $300,000 sale price, it shifts what you're looking at. So when you start looking in $200,000 neighborhoods, that's not where I'm looking for my business. I'm looking for 3+. Actually, for you, you might be like, I'm going to start focusing all my marketing on 500+ because I want to head more towards that $1 million thing, right? If you go up in sales price, you either sell more houses or you go up in average sales price, okay? So task for you guys for the next week is to start build out that goals. I want you to get your mindset bulletproof. Repeat over and over and over what you want. Anytime you see anything that doesn't match what you want in your universe, in your world, in your whole perspective, I want you to stop what you're doing, take a deep breath, and then say out loud, if you can, I make over $10,000 every month by referral. I make over $30,000 every month passively. I make over $250,000 every year selling houses. I close over 2 or more homes smoothly every single month. Okay, so do you hear what I said on that last one? I have 2 or more smooth closings every month. 2 or more smooth closings. Can you have 2 train wrecks every month? Absolutely. Would I rather have smooth ones? Absolutely. So you hear these agents go, man, all my deals are an effed up mess, and they're a train wreck, and they're falling on, like, people are crazy, and buyers are liars, and sellers are a-holes, and everybody wants to kill everybody at every closing, and every one of their deals is like that, right? My mantra was I have 2 or more smooth closings every month when I first started in real estate. And I would tell you what, I would go to the closing table and people were happy. They're having a good time. Let's have a drink. Hey, by the way, here's a bottle of champagne. Let's pop it now. Let's have some fun, right? So you can set it up. And if your goal is to have 2 or more smooth closings every month, it's completely different than having 2 train wrecks, right? It takes way less time, energy, and effort, and you get better referrals. So take that time to say, I have 2 or more smooth closings every month. Get your mindset in the right direction, okay? Good? So here's your tasks. We're running towards the end of the meeting here. So let me go into what your task is for the next week. It's probably going to take you more than a week to do this, because I know how it works. It's just part of the game, particularly if you're actually selling houses right now and you've got business going on. It takes a little bit of time, right? So the first step in the whole system that I'm teaching you goes like this, okay? Here's basically the whole system. You might say, well, wow, Russ, that's pretty cool, right? Okay, so here's step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, and 8 are down here, okay? So here's the fun part. We've got you guys on what step right now? Step number 1, right? Step number 1 for you guys is to build out your sphere of influence. And in order to do that, you need to have these 4 criteria to be able to say it's a person in your sphere of influence. You've got name, phone number, their address, and email address. Okay, these are the 4 criteria that you need to have somebody as part of your sphere of influence. Part of the reason why I want to make sure you have all 4 of those is because obviously you need to know their name. If you don't have their name, you're pretty much stuck, right? If you don't have their phone number, you can't make a phone call to them. If you don't have their address, you can't mail something to them. If you don't have their email, you can't email them. So there is parts and pieces as we go into here. When you get into step 2, 3, and 4, you're going to need to have addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses. So we don't want to just always reach out to people in one medium. So I will hear real estate agents that are like, well, Russ, you got to understand, man, I send 5 emails to my sphere every single week. Yeah, and they block you and delete you and throw you in a spam folder every single week, which means how many people are actually communicating with on a consistent basis. I'm doing social media every single day. Well, that's only one small part of the party, right? So what I'm talking about right now is instead of focusing on all the icing crap that people are out there selling, we're going to focus on building a cake. Build the cake first, a really awesome cake, and then the social media becomes the icing you put on it, right? It's not the relationship. You got to think of it like this. If you have a significant other and the only way you could communicate with them and the only relationship you had was by actually just communicating with them on social media, would that be a good relationship? For some of you, you might say, gee, if my spouse was only able to communicate that way, it might make my relationship better, right? It might help it for a week or 2. But in reality, if you can't touch people, feel people, hug people, every time I see Tom Trong, I hug the guy, right? It's a different game when you see somebody, you can touch them, you feel them, shake their hand, give them a hug, pat them on the back, see them face to face, sit down and have dinner with them. Yeah, it's called having a friggin' relationship, right?
Yeah, baby.
Relationship. It's not a weird one. It's just a relationship, right? Vernell and I just started a relationship yesterday. First hug delivered, first, second, and third hug I think we had yesterday, right? So when you start looking at the system is to help make you their people so that you have a relationship with them and you become their go-to person. So you need to have this information so we can hit them from multiple angles and get their attention in multiple venues and multiple medias, right? So name, address, phone number, email address for each person. Some of you may say, well, gee, Russ, where am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? If you go into the Jumpstart Masterclass login that we gave you guys, you go into that program, there's a little sheet that you can use. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can plug stuff into. Or if you're more adept with KV Core, you're welcome to plug it into KV Core. I like using an Excel spreadsheet just because it's super simple and easy for me. I just make sure I just get the 4 columns and plug that info in. The cool part is pretty much every program in the world you can import from Excel. So just figure out what way makes it easiest for you to actually get it done. If you're getting it done, I don't care how you get it done. It just needs to get done so you have a list. So next week when we talk, I'm going to ask you, how many people do you have in your sphere of influence? How many people did you add to your sphere of influence or get the information for in your sphere of influence, right? So once you get that full list together, then we can start doing stuff with that list. Now, I don't want you to freak out. If you can't get the whole thing done in the next week between now and next Wednesday, I totally get it. Makes sense. I want you to move strong forward on this. So let's say you got to get at least half of it by next week and then the other half by next week. So within the next 2 weeks, you need to have that list done. So when I say to you, Jay, how many people are in your sphere? You could say 49 or 149 or 187. So when people say 200, my response back to them is that's bullshit. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourself. Nobody has exactly 200 people, right? It doesn't work like that. So you want to make sure you get a real number. What's a real number? Is it 63? Is it 163? Is it 363? Get a real number. What's real for you guys? Here's the thing. I'm not going to beat you up. I'll pick at you a little bit because I want you to move forward. But I want you to be honest with yourself and I want you to be honest with me. You got it done, get it done. If you're not getting it done, why aren't you getting it done? Here's the cool part. As you go further into this program, we're going to be talking about time management. We're going to be talking about 30 points to success. We're going to be talking about the parts and pieces that will help you be more successful with this. But I want you to try out, based on your current understanding of how to do business, see how you do. Next week, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks to be able to actually move forward. One of the things I want you to think of right now is, oh, if I've got to get this project done in the next week or two, I need to block out some time now. So if you're not already a time blocker where you say, on Thursday from 10 o'clock tomorrow, from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I'm only going to work on my sphere, you need to start thinking about doing that because that's going to come into time management. I usually talk about time management further into the program, but I'm going to roll it up a little earlier in the program for you guys because I want you to make sure you block out time to do the things that are important instead of getting to the end of the week and going, oh, crap, the week just happened to me. Instead of you managing the week, the week just ran you over, okay? Does that sound good? Let me check with JC here. What was the number of SOI needed to sell X number of homes? 500 contacts generates how many sales? So JC, great question. Welcome, by the way. I didn't see you pop in here earlier. Good. So 500 people in your sphere of influence should yield you 50 closings. If you're saying, based on the math at 10%, you've got 300 people in your sphere, you should be able to drive 30 closings out of it. If you have 500, you should be able to drive 50 closings out of it. So when somebody says to me, I want to do 100 sales, right? Paula, you're like, I need to do 111 sales. I'd say you need 1,000, 1,100 people in your sphere of influence to do that. And she's going, holy crap, are you crazy? But just join a mega church and become the pastor. You could get that many people all day. Right? So you might be going, oh my God, I can't do that. And I'm going, okay, how do I do this? You think Joel Osteen could pop 1,100 people in his sphere? Yeah, he could totally, right? So let's just take
that online.
Yeah, take a page out of his book, right? So if somebody else has done it, well, like, okay, great. How do I do this, right? So did you know? So here's a perfect example. Jody is a bike rider. I started off in Tampa, Florida, with my real estate business in 2005, and one of the things I did consistently, and I got the majority of my business from originally, was from my mountain biking group. There were 700 members in the mountain biking group I joined. 700 of them. Now, I didn't know all of them, but man, on Tuesday night ride, there'd be 60 or 70 people show up for a Tuesday night ride, mountain bike ride through the dirt. And there's all various groups, and you just go and say hi to everybody. I'm kind of friendly, right? But man, there's a ton of people you can meet doing that. And then I did the mountain biking festival, and 300 people would show up at the mountain biking festival, and they're all messed up just like me, right? These are the drink beer and ride a bike guys, not the shave your legs and ride a bike guys. Totally different group, right? The granola bar eating guys versus the beer drinking, have fun guys, right? Two completely different groups. So you got to say, okay, where can I do this? So Paula, if you got a 700 person mountain biking group and you like mountain biking, you could be their go-to person. Now you're looking at, well, holy crow, my sphere just exploded, right? So instead of saying I don't or I can't or I don't know how, the question is how do I? And if you don't know how to ask that question, just reach out to me personally and I can help walk you through some of that stuff. So if you get stuck on something, you're good. JC, did that answer your question on percentages though? 500 should equal 50 closings?
Yes, it did. I just didn't write that down when you went over it before. Thank you.
Yes, right here. So by the way, I'm recording this too. I'll do the edit for it, and then I'll ship it out to you guys so you got a reminder so you can see that again too. Okay, good. Any other questions between now and next week? Start working on your sphere of influence. You're going to be talking about your goals and mindset. Anytime you start to think, oh crap, how am I going to do that? Or I can't do that, or I don't know if I can do that, It's like, it doesn't matter what you think you can or can't do at this point in the game. I would say, here's what I want, and let's figure out a plan to get there. Okay? And we're going to start moving forward in that regard. Does that sound good? Okay, what is the best way to reach out to me? The best way to reach out to me, actually, great question. I love that, Susanna. The best way to reach out to me is in the Jumpstart Masterclass Facebook group. You guys all should have had access to that. If you're not Facebook friends with me, Facebook friend request me, and then we will plop you into the Jumpstart Masterclass group. And what you'll find is that when you guys are asking questions in Jumpstart Masterclass group, somebody else probably had the same question, so you can actually cross-contaminate each other with answers. You can also utilize your experience. So Jay might be a little further ahead on something. He might have a little understanding of something. So jump in there, ask the question. What you will find is if I get stuck on something, or I've got more questions, I will typically reach out or I'll shoot a quick video and I'll be like, hey, this is Russ. Z asked this question, and here's the answer to it, and I'll blast through it. If we need something more, we can talk personally if we need to. Okay? So I don't have the ability to just do one-on-one with every one of you guys every week because there's 15 of you guys total in this thing. So it would take up way too much time to do that. But if you want to reach out in that Jumpstart Masterclass group, it's a great way to connect with me. You can also ask questions in the six-figure group, but I'd rather keep the stuff within Jumpstart that you guys are paying for in the Jumpstart group. That's only for people that have paid for this program. Okay? Does that sound fair? Any other questions at this point before we move forward? Hi, Lisa Flores. Lisa, the realtor. Okay, any other questions? All right, I'm going to get this thing cleaned up. I will package this up into a little link. I will drop it into YouTube. Usually takes 2 or 3 hours to upload the stupid thing with my system here. And then I will send the link out via email. So if you want to rewatch this, you're welcome to rewatch this. Or you can watch week number 1, session number 1 in the Jumpstart Masterclass program. You can hit the week number 1. It's pretty much mostly this stuff. A little more details here and there. We're kind of I'm going to make some adjustments for you guys as we go through to kind of customize this to you guys. But if you go in the Jumpstart Masterclass, you want to rewatch session 1, this is pretty much the content for session number 1. I always have a little bit of difference variations depending on how many months. It's been 3-4 months since those were recorded. So things have shifted a little bit. So we'll go from there. And again, reach out to me via the Facebook Jumpstart group if you need to, or email me, and we'll come up with a solution. Sound good? All right. Right, 1 hour, a little over 1 hour. So I'll try to be respectful of your guys' time. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. See you next Wednesday. Same bat place, same bat channel. And you get stuck, keep moving forward. And remember, you can do this. You got this.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, Russ. Sending hugs.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.